And a very pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. We took a few weeks off for the holiday, but we are back and ready to look backwards at what was an incredible season of JMU football, getting our first ever bowl win in the Boca Raton Bowl. We're going to talk all about our bowl experience and what was another season of JMU football where we reached some milestones, achieved some things, and made some national noise per always. And we want to go back and look at all of what happened in this great season of JMU football and look forward to what is to come next. We also have a couple of really great guests tonight. We have Billy Atkins is going to join us. We're going to talk about his performance in the Boca Raton Bowl, as well as looking back at his career at JMU. What a great career it has been. We're excited to have him on the program. We're also going to welcome JMU Athletic Director Matt Roan to the conversation, learn a little bit from his perspective of what he learned as his first season as the athletic director for JMU in terms of the football experience, and also talk to him about what comes next, as well as look at some exciting news around the Montpelier Collective. So we'll get to all of that. And then we're going to have a roundtable discussion with former head coach Mickey Matthews, getting his perspective on this season for JMU football. But as always, we want to thank our sponsors. First, from the Montpelier Collective, it was a great year, and we want to just lead with saying thank you to everyone who invested in the collective, whether it was supporting our Champions Dry Bourbon collections, those who made recurring donations, those who amplified our voice. You were a major contributor in helping arm our coaching staffs across JMU Athletics, and it's something we're very proud about here at JMU Sound Off, that we worked so closely with the collective, but really our efforts were just an amplification of what you did through your investment, and this again made our program stronger. So excited to hear what comes next for the collective in its second phase. Also want to give a shout out to Where's Woody, Shoker Enterprises, Your Purple Nation, and Talent Core. They've been with us all season long, and we appreciate their support. It's what allows us to do this. And with that, we're going to bring on the other hosts of JMU Sound Off, Michael Evangelista, Steve Brown, and Taylor Atkins. Guys, I know we're all rested and refreshed from the holiday season. Been a crazy week for me in the disaster space. I will say our thoughts go out to the people of California. We know there are some JMU alumni who are out in the state of California. It's been a crazy time out there. Thank you to so many people who are stepping up to help those who have been impacted by that devastating disaster. And I know there's more help that will be coming, but to turn our attention to JMU, we'll do our fast thoughts as we always do. We'll start with you, Michael.
Excited to be back. Happy New Year to all our listeners. Can't believe we're almost halfway through January already. You know me, I love football. I love prospects and offers and recruiting. And guess what? We survived the portal season, I think. We had a couple people leave, which is fine. I totally understood, but I think we reloaded in a really nice way. So I'm excited to kind of talk through that later on in the episode.
All right, Taylor.
Like Michael said, Happy New Year. Glad to be back. It's great to end the year with 9 wins. Again, 3 years into FBS, 9, 8, and 11 win seasons is, I'd say that's pretty good. So kudos to the coaching staff, the players, everyone that was involved. It was a great time down in Boca, and excited to look back at the season.
Awesome. And Steve?
No, enjoying 2025, loving our schedule, loving where we are as the team, looking forward to seeing where we're going and getting ready for spring. I'm ready now for there to be a spring game. So if Chesney and crew want to speed that up and we can have one in February, I'm all for it.
Maybe you could place a few phone calls, but you can start doing winter workouts with them, Steve. I'm sure they let you run on some of those 5 a.m. Sprints.
Yeah, I've got a half a sprint in me, and it's about 20 yards, and that's about it.
There you go. All right. Well, with that, we're going to get right to our Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. Someone we're really excited to talk to tonight who had a performance for the ages in JMU's first bowl win. So let's get right to it. Our Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. And with that, we're going to welcome Billy Atkins, quarterback at James Madison University, to the discussion. Billy, first of all, hope you had a great holiday season and a refresh coming into the new year. And just thanks for spending some time with us. It was an amazing performance for you down in Boca. But I wanted to start. We had the opportunity to see you before the game. Well, Steve and I were lounging by the pool. You had more important things to be prepared for. But we got a chance to meet your family and to get a sense to see see of just how strong of a support network you have around you. So I kind of wanted you to start off there, to just maybe give some kudos to everyone who surrounds you, your family, your friends, your support network, and how important that is to making you not only the player that you are, but the person who's such a great ambassador for everything that's great about JMU football, but also about the university as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's big time for sure. If you think about it, I came in as a freshman. I think that I obviously had pretty high, life expectations for myself, and things didn't necessarily go how I would have wanted necessarily. But with that being said, I think to your point, having two parents who were able to support me and keep me uplifted through like those tough times and those tough days was huge. And as you saw, like the big thing that kind of really helped me throughout that game and trying to get ready for that game was those two, So having them come to the hotel, see me pregame, as well as my girl as well. She was there. So yeah, it was definitely nice. And for somebody like my dad, for example, I mean, we were up at shoot 5 a.m. in the morning back in middle school, working out, preschool, trying to, like get better every single day. So the fact that he was able to, come and see me start again and play, that was definitely meaningful. And as you can see, it actually helped out a lot. So yeah, it was good.
Well, Billy, I had the chance to see you down in Boca, and I'm glad to have you on the show tonight. And the guys will kind of give me a hard time sometimes because I'm the nostalgic one in the group. Love looking back at history, and the thing that I think, you've probably heard this in various different ways, but I think of in 2004 when Justin Riscotti brought us our first national championship. I think about when Drew Dudzik brought us our first win over a nationally ranked FBS program in Virginia Tech. And now you have joined a very elite and small group of quarterbacks to bring JMU its first bowl victory. And, I know when I got the news and heard that Alonzo wasn't going to be able to play, I was like, I actually mentioned on the show, I've never had a chance to meet you, but I've heard so many people talk about, this guy loves JMU. He bleeds purple, great work ethic in the locker room. Everyone loves him. And I said, man, it would be such a cool storyline to have him go out there and win JMU its first bowl game. And not only did you do it, but I think, again, the nostalgia in me, there are certain plays that just kind of stick with you forever. One of them's from the 2004 season where Dede Boxley caught this pass with his fingertips. I don't think I will ever forget that touchdown you threw to Taylor Thompson in the end. I mean, it could not have been more perfectly placed, more pretty, and just even your release, it was so smooth. And so that's a lot of words to kind of bring to the actual question. Is I just would love to hear about your perspective of being a player that was at a program for so long. These days there's a lot of kids going 2-3 teams in their time as a quarterback, and so you stuck with it. You had a chance to be along a lot of great quarterbacks. Just look back on your time at JMU and tell us how special that bowl victory was to kind of be near the end of your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bowl victory was definitely kind of, like the icing on the cake for me as my career at JMU, well, up until this point anyway. And I think that, the things that were able to be displayed at the game were kind of things that were worked on for so long, in practice, and I think that's something that, a young player that I wish I would have known is that, every single day you have to take practice just as seriously as you would take in the game, So like, for example, like that pass to Taylor Thompson, like if you cut on the tape, those are the same exact throws in practice that I had to, truly work on and try to master. So then when it came to game time, yeah, it seemed effortless, you know. But I think that for me personally, yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the most, I'll say this: it wasn't the career that I would necessarily have dreamed of, but I wouldn't change a single thing for it. I think that everything that I've gone through to be where I am has made me so much, so much better of a person, to the point where it's that, like, never did I ever, I lose faith in myself. I don't think that the team ever lost faith in me. I think that where my work ethic really showed through. So from summer workouts to spring workouts to fall camps, all those things that when I finally did get my shot to go play in the bowl game, I think that the guys were confident to go out there and play. And I think that I think the coaching staff. It's funny. I was talking to Coach Novak, who isn't here anymore, but remember I was talking to him in the locker room before the game. He goes, man, I think that, and it sounds meant a lot to me. He goes, like, you're a kid who I've seen work, a day in and day out, and the fact that you're playing for us, and hopefully, we can, try to get this win. I think that you'll be just fine, and be full confidence in you. And I think that words like that really kind of speak to all the time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears I put into finally being able to like get the opportunity. So hearing that definitely meant a lot and helped out a lot for the game. So yeah,
awesome.
I definitely echo what Taylor was saying, Billy. It was really cool to see you win us our first bowl game, especially. People probably don't remember this, but I think you committed during COVID and you came to JMU after all of the COVID situations. And I don't think you were there for like the spring season and whatnot. And then you helped us obviously transition from FCS to FBS. So you've seen the program, you've seen just college football change over the last few years. But I look back at against Western Kentucky, man, 16 for 23, 181 yards and that beautiful touchdown. Take us a little bit like a week or two before the bowl game when the game plans were being set, and you're probably listening to Coach Kennedy and Coach Chesney, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to run 2 quarterbacks." Like, what was said, and what was like your thought process leading up to the bowl game?
Yeah, I think that for me, I definitely have full confidence in Coach Kennedy. I think never was a point where I was okay, I'm not sure if it's going to work or things of that nature. I knew that whatever he said would work. And I think that speaks to Coach Kennedy, but as well as Coach Smith and Coach Chesney, to where that they truly create a game plan that helps us be confident, to where whatever the weakness is or whatever we're what we're good at, that we can maximize in the game. I think that that's what we showed back on I think the 18th or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that for me, I think that if I truly believed that I would go in and do my job, I thought that would be just fine. And obviously I think it was pretty cool seeing JC Evans out there. These young guys still, I think just turned 19 years old, like going out there playing versus some guys who were 24, 25. So that was definitely good to see. And I think that for him to have, I think it was he had 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty cool. So but yeah, I mean, I think that for me personally, like, never did I ever have a lack of confidence in whatever it is that we're going to do out there in the field.
Yeah, speaking of confidence, man, you threw some beautiful balls that day too. I think you could have had, maybe there was a couple of plays had to be made there, especially in the beginning. But it was the right read, that's for sure. Curious to hear, like, was there any? I mean, the game's over now, but was there anything out of Western Kentucky that you guys were looking to exploit, like certain matchups, or did you like certain matchups leading up to the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys kind of saw during the game a little bit is that you saw Omarion Dollison. He got the ball a few times, and he had a few plays that were pretty explosive, and he could honestly a few more. But that's a guy to where I was second string with him. Like him and I last year, we weren't getting very much playing time at all. But all those times in practice where it's just him and I just trying to build that chemistry for when for when the time did arise to where we are playing together. You kind of got to see that. There's a third down I think that we had on around like the 50-yard line on the left hash where I threw a slot fade to him, and I had guys open here shorter. But I think that I truly believe that he would go and beat his man and make that play, and that's exactly what he did. So things like that is something that I think truly matters. And of course, there's game plan things that we're trying to maximize and take advantage of throughout the run game and pass game, things of that nature. But I think that, I think that chemistry and that bond, trying to go beat those guys man to man, I think that's what helps us separate.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought up Dollison, because seeing his evolution since coming to JMU, I feel like he was all long balls and big plays, and then watching him at the bowl game, catching first downs. I know exactly which play you were talking about when he had that one-on-one over the top. It's really cool to see how that evolves over time. Speaking of over time, my last question has to do with this. I mentioned you committed during COVID. Can't believe that was, almost 5 years ago now. Walk us back, right? Let's go back 5 years ago. We're getting recruited out of Baltimore, I believe. JMU comes calling. I can imagine, your high school senior season probably was affected with everything going on. Tell us about your recruiting process and why JMU and how'd you get here in the first place?
Yeah, my process was definitely different. That's for sure. Going back to high school, I finished out my junior year. We had won our championship. At that point, I was probably like, I don't know, probably about 170 pounds, soaking wet. So I was about 6'1", 170. So I was thin. I wasn't highly recruited just because I was so skinny. Man, I would always train really hard and stuff like that. Whatever, but I can never hold weight to save my life. At that point, COVID hit. COVID hit obviously, so that means that there was no camps, there was no traveling to places. Like, it was really none of that. So what my dad and I did was we had the bright idea of going live on Twitter and streaming our workouts. That way, coaches could actually see what it was I was doing.
I remember
And
those
see,
videos
yeah,
actually
and
back in the day.
see my accuracy. I was trying to, show that I was, consistent and stuff like that. But as well as that, we actually, thank God, have a workout room downstairs in the basement. So I was just knocking back protein shakes, just trying to gain weight, just trying to, lift and stuff like that, whatever, to finally gain weight. And then one day, I think it was closer to this. I think it was closer to the springtime, going into my senior year. No, summertime. Excuse me. I got a follow from Coach Signetti on Twitter, and I was like, "Wow, okay, JMU, like this is pretty cool." I mean, I was not expecting that because at that point, I think I had probably about 7 or 8 offers from other CAA schools, as well as I think I had like University at Buffalo at that time as well. So it was, I wasn't really super highly recruited. But then Coach Sig followed me. I remember Coach Montgomery followed me after. So at that point, I was like, okay, this could be possible. Finally, they did offer me. That was definitely one of the coolest things that I can remember at that point in my life. Going into the senior year, I think I played one game. I played pretty well, but after that, the season got canceled, so I had no senior season. I actually would have broke Maryland's all-time passing yards and passing touchdowns, and maybe something else as well. But that didn't happen, of course, because of COVID. So yeah, it was definitely not the it was definitely not the senior year that would have imagined for myself. But it's okay. And then finally coming into college, that's when it was crazy. That's when all of these 6-year things started arising, 7th year, 8th year at times. That's when NIL kicks in, I think my sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken. So where guys can start making, I guess having agents and stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely a crazy transition. Obviously, transitioning from FCS to FBS, and like now we're here. So yeah, it was quite the journey, early on. So.
Well, tell us, if you would, a little bit about the backup role over the last season, because what Coach Chesney mentioned to everybody is that you were the backup the whole season, and it was kind of an interesting QB room. You've got Dylan in there acting almost as a coach. I think Dylan's got to be like close to 30 years old. I don't know how Dylan is, but I mean, and he's he was acting as a coach in a lot of ways. You were the backup. Talk about the the synergy going on in that QB room, because that can go south quick, or it can be really, really good and really seamless. And it seems like it was that. So just talk a little bit about that before I ask you one other question.
Yeah, coming out of fall camp, I was actually the third string quarterback. I was pretty much just watching practice at that point, just trying to stay locked in for whatever my role may have been, whether it was just trying to, like give guys plays. I was sideline trying to have like down the lines at that point. So again, it wasn't necessarily something that I would have imagined for myself, but it was it kind of is what it was. I just had to make sure I was doing whatever it was for me personally and my own personal career, to where if it did if opportunity did arise, I'd be ready. And then going to, I think it was probably about week 4 or 5, it was ULM. Dylan had made a throw and he ended up hurting his wrist because I forgot what exactly happened, but he hurt his wrist. Long story short, whatever. Dylan couldn't play because he actually had a injury from Washington that basically came back up again. At that point, Dylan fully took on, to your point, like the coaching role, to where he's a guy who's 23 years or 24 years old. He's played a lot of football. He started what 12 to 18 games, something like that, like somewhere in between there. And he's a smart guy. He was right behind Michael Penix like year before, so he obviously knows what he's talking about. So he definitely helped out me and Lonzo big time, as well as obviously Coach Kennedy as well. To where he gave us some good pass game tips and stuff like that. He helped us out in the run game. He was a guy who was honestly like the glue for our room, because as you probably have heard about in college football, there are guys who come in, they have egos, they want to be the guy. And he truly was not that, whether he was a starter or wasn't. He was a guy who was truly there for everybody, and that really helped us stay tight knit. I think that was probably like the biggest thing in our room is that I feel like any guy could have gone in and played because of having really two coaches in the room plus Coach Sproles as well. So I mean, really had three coaches. And yeah, I mean, I was a backup. Obviously, I was trying to help Alonzo where I could. Obviously, he's playing so like that, and I'm trying to help him out on the sideline where I can, help him out on practice where I can, and obviously trying to be ready myself. But yeah, I mean, I think that room was tight. I think that kind of helps us, propel going forward. Week through week. So.
Well, tell us the last thing I'll ask you about is at the end of the game, when the game was over or basically over, you kind of walked out on the field a little bit and then kind of took a knee a bit. Tell us what was going on during that time frame.
Yeah, so really what it was is that we took the knee at first. I come to the sideline. I was coming to the sideline. I looked up in the stands, and it all just hit me pretty hard. I definitely started crying right there a little bit. All the guys embraced me, so that was pretty cool. Then we finally ended the game. Blake Handle took the knee, so that was really cool for him. I came back out onto the field again, and hit me harder to where I had to just drop down to my knee. And really, that was just pure happiness and joy, and honestly gratitude. Just trying to thank God for my experience of really like the ups and downs. I mean, I definitely would have not have imagined like the career that I had, but the fact that it did turn out to where I got to get the first win for the JMU in a bowl game. I mean, that was definitely meaningful. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely emotional, but I was definitely just excited and happy to finally have some success. So.
Well, nobody. I mean, a lot of people don't know. I know how hard you've worked in the time you've been at JMU, and I just want to say thank you. You've been outstanding. You are exactly what JMU is all about, and I know how hard you've worked. I know how hard you've studied. I know how much time you've put into it, and to see you excel in that bowl game. I don't cry much. I had a tear at the UVA game last year, and I had a little tear at the bowl game, mainly for you. And I just want to just let you know that. I mean, honestly, it was really emotional just to watch you do what you do, and you did it so well. So just thank you.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, Billy, I think Steve kind of said it best, but the reason we wanted to have you on, and we told you in the green room, is certain people who lead with class from day one. You were one of those players, and to have you have the moment that you did, no matter what you do in the rest of your football career, whatever you do after football, you're going to always be a Duke, and you're somebody that I know everyone in this fan base is going to celebrate. So as we end with every one of our athletes to come on here, first of all, just thank you for everything you did off the field, those long hours, the early mornings, the late nights that you put into doing this, because you had choices for what you could have done. And again, in an era where there's a lot of transition between programs and stuff, you gave it your all to this program from day one. And just, I don't think we could say enough how much it's appreciated. And I know everyone on this program has your back going forward, whatever it is. And just all the best and congratulations on what will always, as Taylor says, there's only one first victory when it comes to a bowl game. And you were one of the quarterbacks as a part of that. That's pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. I think I said to you, I think a text message. No, I'm sorry. I sent it to Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
But again, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I definitely have tons of gratitude for his opportunity. Again, like I said, I never thought that I would be talking to you guys, honestly, at points in my career. But the fact that I am here, it means a lot. So, I definitely appreciate you guys for sure.
Awesome. Well, Billy, all the best to you, man. Say congrats to your mom too, because we said she was pretty nervous woman, but she seemed pretty excited after the game as well. So all the best to your family. We'll be watching what comes next in the career of Billy Atkins.
Thank you. Have a good one. Appreciate
all
you
right.
guys.
Thanks, Billy. And with that, wow. Can't think of a better representative of all the things that's great about college football than that. That's what you should want to see from a college athlete. So great stuff from Billy. But we want to transition pretty quickly to our next guest. Can't think of anybody who's more appropriate to look back on his first season for JMU football than our new athletic director, Matt Roan. So we're going to bring him into the conversation. Matt, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your Sunday. You've been gracious all season long. Want to start before we get you to look back. there was a pretty big announcement that came out from you and your team about the future of the Montpelier Collective. We've had some questions come in, so we thought that would be a great place to start for fans who may not have had a chance to see your note. Give fans a little bit of update on where we stand and what comes next with our NIL efforts and the role of the collective.
Well, I appreciate it, Jonathan. Before I say anything else, really, I do, just like you all, right? I want to give credit to Billy, who just spoke. And a highlight for me this fall was listening in on this podcast every single Sunday night and hearing student athletes like Billy, who are unbelievable leaders, who are passionate about this place, who love this place, who are incredibly articulate, great communicators. We have a lot of student athletes like Billy, but I could not be more proud of him and what he's done for himself here and what he's done for this university and this program, being a part of it. So I wanted to get that off my chest first. Incredibly proud of him and hearing him talk tonight. Steve talked about 2 times that he choked up. Hearing him talk tonight, it puts that lump in your throat. You feel for that kid, and you want more and more people to have that same type of passion and that same love for this place. But there's probably more questions than answers with respect to the role of collectives nationally as we move toward this pending House settlement. Certainly, I think in the fall, about 2 months ago, the IRS put out an enforcement memo really talking about those 501c3 collectives and kind of their function and their purpose and all those sorts of things. And so in collaboration with Cliff, certainly in collaboration with the board, we just made the decision that the collective would no longer accept donations. Certainly the donations that have already been received will be paid to our student athletes. But we can step in now, and I think the pending House settlement allows us to step in really and start to receive the balance of those pledges. And certainly for those who are interested in giving to NIL, they can work directly with our Duke Club staff to do just that as we move towards that July 1st deadline, or I guess start line, in actuality, where direct NIL and rev share are really what we're calling enhanced scholarships come into play for our student athletes. And so there will be more clarity, I think, as we come to the next few weeks, and certainly what our roster limits look like. We want to share that publicly, and we want to share what our enhanced scholarship plan is and what that looks like, Jonathan. But right now, it's just stepping in and accepting those donations really on behalf of the collective, and then post June 30, July 1. The Montpelier Collective, for which we are incredibly grateful and indebted. And it's a big part of the reason that we've had success for the last several years here, and certainly this year. It just allows us to kind of step in and take that role.
This is kind of a parallel to all of that. Now, confirm it for me and everyone else listening. Priority points will be allocated to gifts to NIL, Duke Club, everything, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, that remains unchanged, Taylor.
So, one of the most exciting things that, came out, we found out who our 2 Western opponents were in the Sun Belt last week. And I don't know if I've ever had more excitement for an upcoming football schedule. 2 of those games you had a role in under your administration that kind of came to be. So talk a little bit about kind of how that schedule came to be, and the excitement behind that schedule. And then also why priority points are going to be so important, because we sold out of season tickets last year.
Sure.
We expect the demand to only increase, and not only for the season tickets and home games, but also away games.
Yeah, when I see the 12 games, right, the 6 home and the 6 away, you kind of take a deep breath and think, all right, we're going to have our hands full next year. But that's the type of schedules that you want to have. And Coach Chesney and I certainly had the chance, and we work obviously very closely with Matt Transu on anything that's football related, right, as the sport administrator for that program. We wanted to challenge ourselves. We want to put ourselves in a position where if we're good enough, right, we can knock on the door to the CFP. And it's not lost on me. We want to deliver the types of games that you and, tens of thousands of others want to come to Bridgeforth Stadium and see. And so for me, it really kind of all started in the summer. Our schedule was mostly intact. We had Utah State and we had Tennessee Tech. That Mr. Bourne and Kevin White, who's still with us, had put together, and then a friend of ours named Dave Brown, who works with a scheduling software called Gridiron, reached out and said, "Hey, any interest in swapping out Utah State for Washington State?" And I went to Ches and I said, "What do you think?" And we made the decision together that that was a good move for us. And then about 2 months ago, Tennessee Tech reached out and said, "Hey, any interest in swapping out for another FCS game?" And I said, "Sure, but you've got to bring somebody to us." And they brought Weber State to us. And obviously, I think for our fan base, that's an opponent that does resonate for an FCS game. And so we're excited to kick off the season with them. And then when you look at the three that we get at home, ODU, App State, Georgia Southern. There's always the rivalry inside the state, and then we think two of those a favor. But and then to have the opportunity to bring Louisiana here and to play them in the league for the first time, and to go to Texas State, and I think those will be great experiences for us. But it's a competitive schedule that I think accomplishes a lot of the goals and a lot of the things that we were trying to do, and really feel incredibly fortunate to have put it together. And Matt and I just this past week start looking at 27, 28, 29, 30, and you look up, all of a sudden you're in 34 and 35. And so fortunate to have a partner with him. Certainly have a coach that's willing to play anybody, anywhere. So really fortunate from that way. But you talk about priority points, and whether it's people giving to support NIL, whether it's people giving to support our coach and staff retention efforts, it's giving to support our programs with our kind of restricted program specific funds, or pretty soon capital requests. Taylor, I mean, every single thing that anybody can give helps move the needle for us. And if that's $50, $100, or that's 5 million, you would certainly get your points awarded based on whatever that commitment is. But
Sure.
anything that anybody can give, it absolutely moves the needle for us. And so that's why I keep saying all the time that we're incredibly grateful for everything that everybody has done. But we need people to continue to invest, and we need people to continue to get other people, which may be the most important thing, to invest if we're going to be able to sustain the type of success that we've grown accustomed to here, and position ourselves really as a leader among our peer set. And once we've done that, I think the possibilities and the things that could result from that are really exciting and limitless, really.
Awesome. Thank you.
Matt, I was looking back at 2024, going 5-1 at home, and just seeing like the home field advantage is real at Bridgeport.
Oh, yeah.
And I think next year, with Washington State coming to town, App State, ODU back, I think it's going to be exciting, and I think we can hit that hopefully 6 straight sellouts. I think that's still the goal, right? So, awesome. Thanks for having you on, and Happy New Year. I feel like in 2025, folks like, outside of us, I feel like, unless you're following college football, they're starting to understand what NIL is. They're starting to see some of the changes. And yet, here's another change, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned rev share, particularly in the state of Virginia. Take a step back and just kind of explain to our fans, new fans, like what that change is, and what does bringing the Montpelier Collective in-house, like what does that actually look like? Obviously, revenue share sounds very straightforward, but like, talk to us a little bit about what the implication of that is for JMU.
Yeah, Mike, I'll go back one step further, right? So when you talk about 5-1, right, you do leave the season with that bitter taste in your mouth that one happened on November 30th. And our staff, I know, gets probably tired of hearing me say it, but we're already talking about next year, right? How do we go 6 for 6? How do we sell out all 6 home games? Because again, that's the catalyst for a lot. It creates revenue. It sends a signal that Bridgeport Stadium does need to be looked at, right? Does need to be expanded, and all those sorts of things. So there's just so much momentum when we're supported as we have been. It just creates so many opportunities, I think, for change. But yeah, I think our fans have by and large done a really great job as we benchmark ourselves in terms of our conference peers, and really kind of maybe a more select group nationally with respect to NIL. Our folks by and large have answered the bell. They are what allowed us to put the 24, 25 rosters that we have together. And frankly, it's what's allowing us to put as we build our 2025 football team together right now. And there are some really kind of external factors at play. And when I'm talking externally, just kind of those natural, the lawsuits and settling those NCAA changes that really allow us to, again, I think create even more harmony and really
Mhm.
kind of administer, if you will, NIL, direct NIL, rev share. Again, we keep using the phrase of enhanced scholarships here on campus to really kind of eliminate any sort of confusion at all. You've heard me talk a lot about really kind of my priorities. I want to give our programs every single thing that they need to be successful. Every head coach, I want them to have at their disposal the things that they think allow them to win and sustain championship level programs. I want to have the absolute best places, right? The best facilities in which we're competing. You're coming to visit. We're developing student athletes on a daily basis. But I really believe in the value and kind of the power of people. And by bringing really the collective and a lot of those functions more in-house, we're able to invest more fully in our student athletes and combining that with our resources. We're able to invest in our coaches and staff and retaining them. And so we're going to be hammering that home, just, how important it is to give to the proud and true to our annual fund, because that lets us or allows us to invest in people and really to, again, benchmark ourselves where we're leading in the league. And then, we're going toe to toe with the Boise States of the world, the Memphises of the world, the Tulanes of the world, and knocking on the door to, become even more known than we already are.
Yeah. Speaking of being known, I saw something on Twitter where I think JMU is what, top 3 or top 4 in the G5 and like
Yeah,
Instagram followers. I mean, like those things are important, right? Nowadays.
absolutely. I don't think you can overstate the importance. If it's measured, it's important because
Mhm.
somebody's paying attention to it. And I think what you saw with Skull Sparks the other day is maybe the percent growth, but I think even more it was across certain main channels or platforms. The number of followers like on Facebook or X and Insta combined. And yeah, I mean, we were, I think, number 4 among all the group of 5. And I think that speaks volumes. And, we've proven time and time again, we led off with this, that we've sold out 5 of 6 home games, and we are going to sell out 6 home games next year. We're going to travel well to those games. But I think it's even important when you can't be there that you're watching ESPN Plus and that you're subscribing to that and we're getting those eyeballs, we're getting that visibility because somebody is seeing that and they're watching that
Mhm.
and it moves the needle for us.
Awesome. One last question for you. You mentioned earlier in the conversation the Montpelier Collective is no longer accepting donations. I know a lot of our listeners, including myself, were monthly subscribers. What do we need to do? Like, what steps do we need to take to make sure that we're providing you and your team, obviously, the funding for next year, but how do we start those donations back up?
Yeah, you can reach out directly to us. Obviously, Scooter Rankin, our Duke Club staff, anybody on the Duke Club staff is equipped to answer those questions, and we can help facilitate those. Again, able to accept those donations, not able to pay them until July 1 when the rules anticipated or expected to change. But we can take those donations and we'll gladly do that between now and then.
Yeah, so we've got for the collective standpoint, and Matt will correct me if I'm wrong, but the war chest is there, so I don't want anybody to think there's no money. We had a great year, and the collective basically is sitting with that money, and will continue to pay that money out. But what we need everybody to continue to do is make their donations to JMU, because you will still get a tax deduction through JMU through the foundation, and you get your priority points. So the only thing that's changed is the website for the Montpelier Collective is shut down for donation reasons, but all of it's shifted over to JMU. So I don't want people to think, well, gee, they don't need the money. We do. We still need you to give, because now it's all part of revenue sharing. So in fact, the give is bigger. We're going to need that. Plus we've got capital stuff. So I was going to ask you about the capital request, because you said that nobody followed up. So I'll just follow up on that. What
I can always count on you, Steve.
What capital request are you talking about there?
Well, I don't think it's any secret. So obviously, there's been a lot of kind of chatter and I think intrigue about Bridgeport Stadium and reimagining the east side there. And I've talked plenty about the process that we wanted to go through, and certainly having President King in place. His fingerprints, I've said, are all over this campus, and probably not a surprise that the master plan would be reviewed. And so we are working closely with Mosley and Sasaki on the university's master plan, and they are working with Populous, a sports architectural firm, to really kind of come up with a stadium plan. Again, trying to give us the concepts and the cost estimates that then we can go do our job and find out if it's something that you and so many others are interested in and could support. And so the 18th was a long night. We played a game in Boca. We won a game in Boca. We were a little bit delayed getting back into Shenandoah Valley that next morning. So I think I rolled into my house about 3 or 3:30, and then I had a 9 a.m. meeting with that group of architects where they gave us their initial thoughts, and we were able to provide kind of that initial feedback. And so with the holidays, I'm sure they took some time to recharge. We took some time to recharge, and so I anticipate here in the next couple of weeks we'll have the chance to reconvene and just kind of see what they came up with, rather, excuse me, based on that initial feedback that we were able to give. And everything seems to be, again, on schedule, on pace, and we're just working through that, Steve.
So everybody out there, we're going to need, not only we're going to need the donations for the revenue sharing, but we're now going to need donations for the capital campaign that's coming
right.
for the capital expansion. So get ready. I'm purchasing a snowball machine. It's called the Sound Off Snowball Machine for the App State game. Because since it's clear you can throw snowballs with anything in them. So for the Thursday night game, I think we're going to get, I'm predicting this, nobody said anything, I think we're going to get a Thursday night game with App State at home, and with the pom-poms going. I'll have my Sound Off snowball machine going. It's just
I think Steve's internet in Goochland strikes again. So
you know what?
While he snowballs, maybe that's just the internet trying to. The internet might have been trying to send him a message.
I'm back.
I have to pretend I didn't hear anything about
exactly.
snowballs there. So it was a glitch, Steve. I didn't hear anything there.
I'm not going to do that. The other thing I was going to just ask you is there a plan in place? And I'm sure there is, but is there a plan in place to kind of expand the giving network within JMU? Because over the years, as you know, there's been kind of a core group of people that have kind of financed a lot of stuff, but I'm assuming you guys have a plan for 2025 to really get the generations in place. So the Michael Evangelistas and the Jonathan McNamara's and Taylor Atkins and those folks, get those donations going. I'll just figure out to ask you that as my last question.
Yeah, and I think, the events that we have, those are strategic, right? How we communicate those things are strategic. What we can do, really all we can do are, work diligently and creatively to try to put that message out there, and just how important, continued contributions or new contributions, or, reigniting maybe a lapsed commitment or contribution are. And again, the purpose of this Sound Off podcast, which again, we're so appreciative that you all are help carrying that message forward for us as well. But absolutely, Steve. I mean, there's strength in numbers, and that's not only the dollars that come, but that's just the volume of people who contribute so much of their time, talent, and treasure to the building up of this place. And so we're never going to stop. To your point just a moment ago, the messaging about giving to NIL is not going away. The messaging about giving to our programs and helping us build great things is not going away. If we're doing our job, we're making that vision even more compelling, and hopefully emphasizing the significance of it.
Hey, Matt, I was going to ask you one last question just about the thing that I enjoyed seeing from you this fall, in addition to obviously your access you provided, was just how much of a family affair this was for you, whether it was your wife on the sidelines, your kids are at the basketball games. How special was this fall for you, just because it was obviously a real period of transition for your entire family, but it had to be pretty cool just to see how much you all were embraced, but how much they seem to really embrace Harrisonburg as well. It really was a two-way street.
No, for sure. It's a great question, and it causes me really to be reflective, John. I mean, and I cannot say it more clearly. I absolutely love what I do. I love the good days. I take the bad days from time to time, but it's those that make you appreciate the good. And I hope JMU Nation can see that that's sincere. I hope that they can appreciate just how much this place means to me and to be a part of it, right? It's built, and mine is the opportunity to come in and to make something that's great even greater, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. But it is a busy job. It is sometimes a stressful job, and even in those busy moments when I can surround myself with Mallory and the kids, um, when I'm surrounded by them, some of the stressful moments become less stressful. And so, really, for us, it is a family affair. I have four amazing kids. We do our best to parent them the way that we would, people hopefully can appreciate and try to instill those values in them. But, how lucky are we that we have 18 to 22-year-old role models, 500 plus of them that we get to, kind of really expose them to, whether it's at practices or at games. And again, going back to what I led off with at the very beginning of the conversation, the Billy Atkins of the world, the guests that you've had throughout the entire fall, we have great student athletes here, and to be a part of this place, this campus, this community, just could not be more proud, and it's home. There's no doubt about it.
Well, we're excited to see your evolution as Mallory, forces you more into the social sphere. I'm sure you'll have an outfit of the day post coming up soon, and other things.
Yeah,
So we know there's lots more to come from the
a
Roan
lot,
clan, but
a lot more glitter on
there you
tap,
go.
I think, for next fall. So we're looking forward to it.
Well, in all sincerity, it has been incredible to watch you all be embraced as well. We all knew and kind of expected, but to see it play out in real time has been pretty special because this is a family atmosphere here, and to see it all happening so well and everything meshing after Jeff Bourne's illustrious career, that's the way it should be, and the fact that it's been so well received on all sides is great for the future of JMU athletics. And I know you've got another semester of great athletics ahead of us. Obviously, the basketball season's still underway. Men's, women's, we've got lacrosse on the horizon, ranked number 18th in the country. Excited for baseball, softball, and everything that comes down the pipe. So we know there's so much more work that you have in front of you and your team. So we just want to end this recap episode of football for just saying simply thank you. You embraced us and you embraced the fan base in ways that have allowed a real transparent and two-way conversation. And that's what we hope this forum can be, and others, to bring us all closer together and to give you the ammunition and the feedback that you need. I wanted to give you there was a survey sent out. Why is that important? If people check their email boxes, there's a kind of a football recap survey, maybe 30 seconds. Why is that so critical to the decision-making that you have to do over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, it's feedback, right? We want to know what you've seen at our place that you think can be improved upon as you've gone to other places. What you've seen, what can be improved upon, or what are it's copy and still everything, right? It's the case method, R&D, rip off and duplicate. But what are those things that we can bring to our place to make it even, again, to my point, even greater than it already is? And I think surveys, I think opportunities like this with the podcast, I think it hopefully illustrates my style. It's our athletics department, I get to talk about it, right? I get to say what I think is best, but there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in what it is that we're trying to do, and shame on us if we're not open to those ideas or not open to that feedback. And so we take those things seriously, and this is an opportunity for us to get real, honest communication and look for ways to implement those changes to make whatever we're doing an improvement.
Awesome. Well, no snowball machine, more LED lights. We'll go with that.
That's right.
We'll just end there. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. As always, all the best the rest of the semester. We'll be cheering you on. You always have a platform to get the word out anytime you need it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. And with that, we're going to bring on the rest of our team that includes Michael, Taylor, and of course, the one and only Mickey Matthews. Guys, it's hard to believe we're sitting here in January. I remember our first show when we previewed the season like it was just yesterday, because there were, I don't know if any of us expected us to start off as hot as we did, but there were a lot of question marks. None of us predicted a 70 spot, let's just say, against North Carolina for starters. But I'm going to start with you, Mickey. When you look back at this season, you were someone who joined us as we went through, and you said there were a lot of question marks about this group. When you lose as much as we did from a production perspective, I think a lot of us said 6 wins, 7 wins would have been something that wouldn't have surprised us, but we had expectations that you could go higher. When you look back on the 2024 season, what are some of the things that stand out to you?
Well, the difference in our situation and some other programs that had to bring in, 50, 60, 70 kids, You know, a lot of programs did that because they had no players. You know, that they had some of these guys that were going to be juniors and seniors. They were kind of like, you tell our staff, we don't want fifth-year players that can't play, or fourth-year players, you know, that play. It's like having a kamikaze pilot on his 18th mission. You know, that's not real good. And when you go back to what we were going through, you know, like saying we had a lot of attrition was like saying the Titanic took on a little water. You know, because we had our best players go to Indiana. And that was and I don't, like I say, every time I say that, I don't, you know, I wasn't mad at Kurt because, you know, the day he signed with Indiana, his job was to make Indiana the best he could make them. But, you know, you take the guts of your football team left. And I think that the job our staff did this year, from the time they arrived to get a football team out on the field that was as competitive as it was, as good as it was, you need to give them a gold star. I mean, I thought it was tremendous the job they did this year. I said many times to JMU people who would ask me, Coach, what do you think we'll be this year? I said, well, if we win 6 games, we'll be lucky. That I had no idea about ability. I had no idea about, you know, who was supposed to be good in the league. I just knew that we were really encountering some rough waters when that many kids leave. You take your seniors leave, and all those kids leave for Indiana. And unless I'm mistaken, they played pretty good. Who they played in the bowl game? Indiana played Notre Dame. Is that right? Yeah, they played Notre Dame. They played them dadgum well. All our JMU kids did. So that being said, I thought we had a good year. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You know, there's some, you know, you can get specific about it. Certainly, you know, we got through the Gardner-Webb game. We didn't play very well, but won that game. And then we struggled on the road. You know, we didn't play, you know, Monroe. I think they won 1 game after we played them. Isn't that correct? I looked that up about 2-3 weeks ago. So we didn't play well down there. We didn't play well at Georgia Southern. And I'm sure Bob was I've been there, BT, DT, been there, done that, where you've got to pull your hair out, those games. And so but I thought it was good. I think, to tell the JMU Nation what with Kay and I were in Harrisonburg when we had an open date. I couldn't tell you why I was up there. I'm sure our grandchild was doing something. But I went by and watched practice, and I told Bob that we have 4 games left, and we could win all 4. We could lose all 4. And that we had Georgia State, and then App, and who'd we have at home? Marshall at home.
Yeah, and ODU.
ODU. And I said, Bob, the ODU game is you know, is huge. I mean, it's bigger than App to the JMU people. You know, that they expect to win that game. And so if you look back at that, was about right. You know, we beat Georgia State very bad, and I think Old Dominion, I don't know if they had beat us, but if they hadn't dropped so many passes in the fourth quarter, you know, that would have been a difficult game for us to win down there. I mean, they had some huge drops. And although our kids I thought we played well in the game. But that'd have been a difficult game to win. And then really the other 2 that drive you crazy if you're Bob is the App game and the Marshall game, because everyone thought middle of the second quarter both games were over. And so we did not finish those games. But that being said, and then won the bowl game, I thought it was tremendous. I mean, I really thought I never watched the game and thought, why are we doing that? We're not doing that. You know, they did a good job of coaching. I think we really good. The quarterback situation, they did a good job. Defensively, I looked nationwide. I believe we finished 23rd in the nation in total defense. It was an amazing statistic. We're number 1 in the nation in turnover ratio. So we did some really good things. Defensively, I thought I really like our scheme. When I'd watch the games from the press box, you know, we ran some man, some zone, we blitzed. Offensively, I thought we did what we could do. Yeah, it's good. I thought it's a terrific year. I think all things being said, I thought we had a good year.
Yeah, Coach, I was going to say, just to add on to that, the fact that we were, 2 plays away from being 11-2.
Yeah.
A quarter away, I'd look at the App State game. I think it was the third quarter that was pretty atrocious, or the second quarter. We were a quarter away from 13-1. I think it's the Georgia Southern game where I look at it, I'm like, man, I don't know what happened that week. It wasn't us, but
no, we didn't show up, no doubt.
No, we didn't show up. Call it what it is.
If you'd been in their meeting on Sunday, I'm sure Bob reminded his team that we did not show up yesterday. And he knows that, and we just didn't.
Yeah.
And then, Coach, how do you turn that around? Because you lose to Marshall on November 30th, and then you've got the bowl game. How do you get those guys motivated to really go out and win that bowl game after you lose that Marshall heartbreaker?
Everyone's different. I was involved with some bowl games, and I was involved with play. I have gray hair for a reason. But I think the guy, the locker room in the Marshall game was, believe me, it's very quiet. And what you do as a coach, you really dig into things like, why are we not playing well in the second half? I'm sure Bob had the guys coordinate talk about what was our run pass ratio in the first half, and what was it in the second half? What did we run defensively in the first half and the second half? What are we doing at the half? Are we not challenging them enough? Are we, there's so many things that goes through your brain when you're a coach, and what you ask about, it's not difficult to get them ready to play. I think when I was up there watching practice, I think it's very obvious that the kids really trust Bob, which is a huge factor in your first year. The kids trust him, and I'm sure he visited with them, and his assistant coaches did, about what we need to do to, win the last game, how important it was, it's not difficult, but you gotta find ways, Steve. Where are we as a team? And it was obvious they did a good job with it.
Yeah, looking back, I mean, this is a question, not really a question for everyone, but John, I remember we were at Charlotte and it was 110 degrees humidity.
I was there. Yeah, you're right.
It was unbelievable. And we're all watching the game. And by the way, we won 30-7. Like, I remember being at the game and thinking, this is too close. This was too close for comfort. Then you realize they didn't score anything in the second half. And I remember, Coach Chesney was subbing like every 2 or 3 plays. It was different players in there, left and right. First time we saw the offensive line rotate, it was all just new. And like, to go from there to where, the team finished up, obviously there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts in there, but pretty phenomenal effort all around. And like, you look at, no one knew Eric O'Neal was going to be Eric O'Neal. Yeah. No one knew, Kyrie Mans wasn't a pass rusher, since he was at Maine. No one knew what Chris Sheeran was going to bring. No one knew who any of the offensive guys were. And I think, like, when I look at the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. I get it. To be able to hit on those players and for them to stay healthy all year was pretty phenomenal effort all around, all things considered, because most of those guys didn't even come until the summer. I remember like spring practice came along and they were like, we need more players. I think that's literally what it was.
Hey, I was there in June. Once again, when we go see our daughter, I always go up to the office and see the guys, see what's going on up there. And I know Bob told me it was like June the 5th. I guess summer school is about to start or something. He said, I got 35 players coming in about a week. I said, you got 35 new players. And I'm just saying, the JMU, it just doesn't happen the way they did it this year. When you got that many new guys and you've got what you're talking about, the Charlotte game, that was the first time those guys had been with Coach Chesney, before the game, at the half, on the sideline. You're still feeling your way. And believe me, some of the transfers you brought in, some of those guys can't play. And you watch the tape. Sometimes you realize during the game, he's not as good a player as we wanted him to be. And then someone else is a lot better player than you thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it goes both ways, but that's called coaching. you've got to find those guys, and the good coaches do that, and the bad ones do not. They think just because a guy's from Tennessee or Georgia, he's a good player, and because someone from that defensive line we had from Long Island State or somewhere he came from,
Yep.
All of a sudden wherever he came from, he's one of the best ones you got. And
well, I'm glad you brought that up because you remember that Charlotte team. Max Brown was from Florida. They had all these kids from Tennessee. They had offensive linemen from I think Georgia, like you had mentioned as well. And there was a lot of chatter going into that game, and I think you saw that, right? You saw the athleticism. You and I talked about it, but we still won 30-7, right? So I think it's interesting.
I thought they got. I thought the biggest reason who won the games, our kids were in shape. Mm-hmm. I actually talked to Mac, like on Monday before they played them. Was that the Monday after our game? I'm not sure when it was, but he knew I'd probably been at the game. I said, yeah, I went to the game. I said, Mac, the kids at Charlotte just gave out in the fourth quarter. I said, I don't know if our kids were in better shape. I don't know the substitution patterns that Charlotte had, but we won that game because we were in a lot better shape than they were. We just were, and now does that mean that we had more depth than them? That easily could have been wasn't keeping up with how they were rotating at Charlotte, but I know the way we coached that game was very good. I really liked the way we did that game.
We'll talk about that, Coach, because I think everyone saw Coach Novak, our strength and conditioning coach, left. I think he joined University of California. Coach says he brings his former Holy Cross head of strength and conditioning in at Grautsky, I think, if maybe someone can fact check me there. Tell us a little bit of how important that is to not just obviously have someone in place, but to make a quick hire going into winter workouts and going into spring practice.
Well, the two biggest hires you have are not your coordinators. A lot of people think that in college football. The two biggest hires you have are your strength coach and your academic counselor. Your strength coach is actually going to decide if you win or lose. And I like the guy. I didn't know we lost him. We lost him, huh?
Yeah, I think he came out last week.
Okay. Yeah, he did a good job. I enjoyed being around him. And I've been in a few weight rooms, and the guy was doing a great job. But our kids were in shape, and it was a lot of energy in the weight room and very positive. And I'm sure the guy that Bob hired is going to be great. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I totally trust Bob with who we're bringing in. But we were in the Charlotte game. We were in better shape than them or something because they were trying to make a comeback. You remember they're in the middle of the third quarter, and they just didn't have it to get it done. And our kids held them off there, and the final score was not indicative of the game. I think it was much closer than 30-7, but our kids, for whatever the reason, were in better shape and competed lots harder the last quarter and a half of the game.
I was going to ask the group if anybody wants to take it. Was there something that surprised you about this team this season? I think for the one thing that, if there's a negative that we saw throughout the year, there were some challenges in the punt game that I think if you would looked at the beginning of the season, probably not something any of us would have anticipated, especially, going into the season with an all-conference national award candidate at the punting position. I'm curious, from you, that was my thing that takeaway was the struggles in special teams. Any other issues this season that maybe popped up that you didn't expect, both positive or negative, from this team that stands out?
For me, I think once the season's over, and you take the emotion out of things and there's nothing else to play for, you kind of get a little more common sense and logical in how you evaluate the season. I mean, there's no more, the losses don't hurt as much. The wins don't mean as much, because you're past it. And it wasn't so much the results. It was almost how they happened, when they happened, and to what teams they were. I think if I remember correctly, I think Vegas had JMU at 8.5 wins for the season. We hit 9. You mentioned a lot of people saying it could be 6 or 7. Don't be surprised. So, I think we were going into the season with certain expectations. And then, Charlotte, there were some struggles. Gardner-Webb, there were some red flags there. And so now you're thinking this might be a 6-win season. And then those next 2 games where obviously you have the Carolina and Ball State, which were just, I think there was 133 points scored between those 2 games. you think,
Alonso's being held up as a Heisman candidate.
Heisman candidate. Yeah, absolutely. And so all of a sudden that expectation of like, well, let's maybe tone it down a bit. We're back to the regular old JMU. We're going to win 11, 12 games this season, which I was just looking back over the last 10 years. There were this was one of 3 seasons where we had 4 losses. Every other season for the last 10 years has been fewer than that. So it was the timing of those losses. And then obviously the emotion behind Marshall, behind App State, behind Georgia Southern. I don't know if it would have meant as much if it was ULM, Ball State, and UNC, for those losses. But it's losses that it's just teams that I just don't want to have to put up with 9, 8 more months of the offseason of having to hear those teams chirp until we get to them next year. But I think the big thing for me is just, let's call a spade and look at a team like Troy that was coming off 12 and 11 win seasons, back-to-back Sun Belt champs. They were 4-8 with a new coach. They were 4-8 with having to replace a lot of players in the portal. And that was a program that has had success at this level longer than JMU has. So I look at Coach Chesney, and now again that the season's over, and especially how we won that Western Kentucky game, which let's remember, that team not only was in the championship for their last game prior to the bowl game for Conference USA, but the week before they played Jacksonville State and lost in the championship, they beat Jacksonville State. So, I mean, you were playing one of the best teams in a G5 conference, and we went out there with, shows how deep our quarterback room was our second and third string quarterbacks were able to go out there and beat a potential conference champ. I'm excited to see what Coach Chesney can do with a full year under his belt. Michael highlighted this earlier. I think, and Coach Matthews talking about how much this team trusts Coach Chesney. I think you see that in how few people ended up leaving. And I would have to guess the ones that did leave, I don't think they would have done so if probably there were some big numbers waved in front of them. So it says a lot how few people have left. Some of the commitments that we've gotten in the transfer portal, I'm excited to see. And if 9-4 is a Coach Chesney season with, you have months to prepare, a new scheme, new staff, new players.
All that new staff, by the way, living in the same house, not having their families there right away.
Absolutely. And I will say this, and I'm not, I go into every season, I want to win every game. Next year is an incredible schedule. It's an incredible schedule for fans. It's a tough schedule for the players, but we have an opportunity to really continue the mark that JMU has left at the FBS level next year. That is a schedule that I think all of us dreamed about when we thought about what it would look like for JMU to go FBS. And
we're also loaded. We're loaded.
Absolutely.
We didn't lose anybody. We lost Eric O'Neill.
And I was going to say, Taylor, I think to go back to your portal piece, I think a lot of the departures are mostly due to, I think, playing time, just knowing where they are on the roster, roster management, as they say, and probably implications of like the smaller roster limitations too. You can't have as many walk-ons. You can't have as many players. So when I think of all the wide receivers that have left and those have come in, I'm not as worried. Well, it's never over till it's over, but still,
And even with the loss of O'Neal, you heard some of his comments about Sam Daniels. He obviously really respected and appreciated this team, but it's hard for a guy to be that good. And then in his bowl game, he was a meme all over social media with his sack celebration.
And he lands at Rutgers.
Sure.
So you look at where a player goes, he's getting a chance to go play close to home.
Right.
He's a New York guy right in his own backyard. That's you can understand that.
So I just think I think obviously the way we lost, being up in 3 of those 4 games by so much and then giving away a loss, and what teams they were, I get the emotion of the fan base, but I think what you saw this season and what you're currently seeing in the offseason, I would love to hear an argument for why you're not optimistic going forward from any fans that aren't.
No, the good thing you heard tonight, and the interesting thing you heard out of Billy, if you guys picked up on it, couple things happened at ULM. ULM was the turning point of the season. Sweezy gets hurt on the second play of the game. Dylan hurt his wrist. So we're now we're limited. He was the third string quarterback on that trip. So if you look at the UL, everything went wrong. They got to play their music the entire time. They never stopped playing their music. If you could have any type of train wreck that went wrong, it was ULM. And from there, then we had what I call the year of consistency and lack of consistency because I couldn't predict any week what we were going to do. But really proud of what they've done. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mickey, I just wanted to ask you one question, and you can pull it any way you want because you're still talking to a number of coaches across college football. I find myself just almost dizzy of the fact of how many players are currently in the portal and how every staff in the United States, when we were at the bowl game, you could see the coaches while they're planning for it, they were walking the hallways, talking to, they had one phone on one ear and one phone on another, talking to prospects all across the country. How would you have handled this roster management that you could plan for having this group of guys, and then you get a phone call and suddenly it's like you have an injury that comes out of nowhere in the offseason? I'm curious maybe how you would have handled it, or how you're hearing from your colleagues who are still in the business. How do you manage this much potential movement and this much uncertainty, and trying to evaluate players all over the country that every day another 100 seem to jump in?
Let me go back. You guys have covered a lot of ground in the last 10 minutes. The first thing I would say about evaluating your football team, what we did and how I was taught when I was a young assistant, is when the season's over, that's no time to look at the game film and evaluate your team, because as you said, you're at that point, you're emotionally connected to all the wins and the losses. It's no time to do that in December. I did not allow my staff to look at I'm sure they could, this day and age where you can, pull it up on your computer, but we did not look at game film till after recruiting. When recruiting would be the second Wednesday in February, we would sign all our players, and then we'd start evaluating the season. And that's when, once again, we were not emotionally connected. You could see what was good and what was bad about the season. Who was a good player and who was a bad. Sometimes we would, for example, you would say, we need to give the ball. We should have given the ball more to somebody. But during the season, you didn't see that. And the guy was playing left guard, couldn't block my wife, and why in the world was he playing? So you go through all those things that you thought you were evaluating during the season that you didn't, because one reason or another. But there's no doubt that you've got to evaluate, and I'm not sure, with this day and age, of how much you recruit in the month of January. You used to recruit, your butt off, which we did. But now the next thing you just asked me is, y'all covered a lot of things. And what you said, what was the thing you just said?
So much right now. You can look at every program in the country is looking at the same database.
I think this is the thing you have to, once again, it gets back to evaluation. Good recruiting is always evaluation. It's not how many stars they have, or when you evaluate a kid, you have to watch him. Hopefully you've watched him in camps in the summer somewhere. You know exactly how big he is. When you're watching game tape, it's a transfer. I always wanted to make sure it was productivity, not, how good he could be in terms of a transfer. And you have to constantly remind your coaching staff, I'm sure Bob does, that Georgia makes mistakes recruiting in Alabama just like we do. And they're more than happy for you to take the guy off their hands. So you better make dadgum sure you watch the kid, or there's a reason why he's not playing. The reason he's not playing 9 times out of 10 is because he's not good enough. And if he's not good enough at Georgia, he's not good enough at James Madison. It happened when we were there, when we were FCS, it would happen. Those kids would come in from Tennessee, and I'd explain to them, NC State, our kids are not impressed with the fact he came from NC State, and they would get their butt handed to them out on the practice field. So you've got to evaluate kids, and you've got to see, will he fit our system? And then again, when you visit with the kid, what kind of young man is he? Is he ready to go? Is he? I always get into recruiting. I've talked to a lot of coaching staffs about this, and I used to always tell them this when we recruited kids, and I'm sure we wanted to sign kids that they were alpha kids. So some kids, when they signed the scholarship in February, they were omega kids. That was what their goal was, to get recruited. Their goal was not to be a good college football player. I wanted kids, with the day they signed, they were alpha kids. That was the beginning. They wanted to go to JMU, get a degree, and be a great college football player. Those are the guys that you want to have. And in terms of transfers, you got to visit those guys that have that feeling about, and you have a good feel about them. Just because you bring them in to visit with them doesn't mean you have to take them. And we've turned many a kid down when I was there at JMU. They'd come in on their visit. They'd be there 24 hours. And we couldn't wait to get them out of Harrisonburg. We did not want them in our program. So that's what you get to. And you've got to you just got to evaluate, and I think the fact that we were as good as we were this year, once again, you got to give a gold star to those guys, to his staff, for the evaluation they did with those guys. I mean, we had some guys come into town, and 2 months later they're wearing purple and gold. And believe me, no matter what Bob's staff will tell you, they thought they knew, but they weren't for sure how those guys were going to play. Because they hadn't gone through spring training with them, and so they did a great job of evaluating those guys. And it's just a different world. Transferring now is what it is, and I'm not sure. The thing that the other part of the deal I would tell the JMU Nation that you can't forget this when you're at JMU is the academic stress there is high. We absolutely had to constantly be aware of how a student, they couldn't, when they were freshmen, they couldn't get to school. What were they going to major in? What did they want to major in? Could they do the work at JMU? We'd have to talk to the different colleges on campus, whether they would take a transfer. I'm sure Bob's running into that. I haven't talked to him about it, but I'm sure you run into that, because when I would talk to some of the deans and head of the departments and all those people on campus, they would hold up a stop sign for me to take a transfer. They had to. It was really a difficult thing, and that's good. That's because our academics are so high there. That's not a bad thing. But there's so many things you've got to do when you take a kid. You have got to watch it. You could. I used to tell I learned, once again, when you lose a recruit, like even a transfer, when you lose them, if you lose them to your number, if they go to Appalachian, you're going to see them 4 times or 3 times in 3 years. If you take a kid and he's a bad apple and he's doesn't want to go to school and he's not disciplined, you're going to see him 52 weeks a year. You're going to see him. You're going to see him every day. So you can't make a mistake. And that's huge in recruiting. Huge, huge, huge.
Awesome. Well, Mickey,
I got off on a tangent there a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, there's going to be plenty of time to look back on this season as we go over the next couple of months. We're going to be bringing on some of the coordinators over the next couple of weeks, kind of to look back as well and to look forward. So, Mickey, any final thoughts from you just on anything related to the program, either looking forward or looking back?
No, I think we're really fortunate. I saw Mike Barber. I think one of you guys alluded to it a while ago about all the guys who first-year coaches, what their record was in Division I football. I think Bob was the only guy that had a winning record. Is that right, Steve? Did you send that? Somebody sent that to me. It was something that Barber sent out, which I don't believe me. I don't read about Mike Barber, but someone.
He was the only one over 8 wins. Maybe that's what it was. It was over 8
something. It's something interesting. I know Barber. He's a typical sports writer. I didn't know he had the intelligence to do that. To look that up, but he did.
First of all, no one will laugh more at that comment than Barber will. Just so you know.
Yeah, Barber's my boy. I yelled at him more than I yelled at our quarterback. But that's the deal. I think we had a great year. And I'm really excited about the direction. I like Matt. I think he's doing a great job. I think we're very fortunate to have these guys in charge. I'm sure we'll get this facility thing going. And I think that's going to be terrific. I think all of us have a reason to be proud to be wearing purple and gold. I mean that very sincerely. Kay and I are back involved, and I think it's terrific. I'm sure they're doing another good job. Believe me, the way I did the same thing. We won the national championship, and that Saturday, less than 24 hours, I'd call 10 recruits. That's what you do. I'm sure Bob and those guys the same way. When they played Western Kentucky, they were on the phone the next day with transfers. It never stops. It never stops. You better be talking to kids and looking at film and making sure you got the best players, because your competitor is doing that. And but I was good. I was good with everything. I'm like everyone else, and I was like Bob Chesney. I wanted to play better on the road, and we just had some dead spots in there. But so does everyone else. You watch. Ohio State. Asked them. Somebody asked Columbus. They didn't have a dead spot this year. That's part of the deal. But I think we're headed in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, Mickey, please send our best to your entire family, and we appreciate you always joining us. And we have many more conversations ahead as we look forward to the next season and then look back at what we did this year. So all the best to you, Mick.
Y'all are terrific. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy. All right. With that, guys, quick, fast thoughts around the horn. I'll start with you, Taylor, on anything we talked about or anything else that's on your mind.
Well, we're in the thick of basketball season right now. Our women's basketball team is at the top of the Sun Belt. They had 2 dominant wins against Marshall and Georgia Southern this week. And I believe in the state of Virginia, they are just behind Richmond and Virginia Tech in the net. I think it's 56 as of today, but they are ahead of UVA, Old Dominion, every other Virginia team. So the women's basketball team deserves our support, and I highly recommend getting out to the Atlantic Union Bank Center and see them. Obviously, a disappointing week for the men's basketball team. They're 0-6 on the road this year, but the good news is they're 5-1 at the Atlantic Union Bank Center, with that one loss being a very close loss to a good George Mason team. So, if you go to the Atlantic Union Bank Center, you're going to see a good team. And again, I kind of joke about it, but we knew early on in this season that the Sun Belt was going to be a one-bid league. So at the end of the day, it's all about our seeding down there in Pensacola. And this team right now, I mean, there's a lot of parity in the Sun Belt because we're only a few games into conference play, and there's no undefeated teams in conference play. We're only 2 games back from first place. So while it was disappointing this last week, and then obviously the way we started with South Alabama, there's still a lot to play for, and
a lot of winnable games coming up too.
A lot of winnable games, and you see the talent on this roster. I'll continue to say this is one of the most talented rosters I've seen at JMU in a long time. But it's can they continue to work and mesh together and become the team that can finish this season strong and go down to Pensacola and make some noise? So we got 2 home games this week. Marshall and App State, teams that it can be pickleball for all I care. Those are 2 schools that you want to beat in everything and anything. So
we need a win against App State. Like I said,
get out to Atlantic Union Bank Center and let's cheer on this team and let's beat Marshall and App State.
Yeah, we got to end that little streak they have over us. This is it's brutal. All right, Michael.
Couple things. I think number one, I was like kind of drooling over what Mickey was talking about with recruiting, right? And I think just like last year, productivity over potential sounds like the name of the game. And if you look at some of the kids that we got this year, to use Mickey's words again, they were alpha dogs at their last, programs, right? The number 1 receiver at Villanova, the number 1 receiver at Richmond, some of the number 1 guys elsewhere at their positions, the number 1 corner at St. Francis. I think, if you can play, the coaches will find you. So I'm really excited to see us continue that momentum. I'm sure many people saw we went back to the well and went to Maine and found a pass rusher, an edge player that was the guy at his last program. And I think that's where we can progress. And also, I just saw on the news, we had a transfer from USF, a receiver that was a former 4-star kid at Purdue. We're competing with Fresno State and Boise State, right?
Yeah.
This is our James Madison. For all the talk around NIL and, who has the most money and who can throw the biggest bags around, I'm always a big fan of the why not us sort of narrative when it comes to all of this, right? It's this is who we're competing with. And once again, Taylor loves to talk about records and 3 years in FBS, 8 wins, 9 wins, and 11 wins. I think if I did that correctly, phenomenal. And we're competing with Boise State, who was just on national TV with Penn State, last week. So a lot to be excited about. I think this goes to my second final point. What's really cool about now is it's all execution. We're in execution mode. This time last year, we were tracking planes, finding out if Coach Chesney was going to sign the paperwork or not. We had no AD. I don't think Charlie King came back yet as the interim president. So imagine just like the state of flux outside of what John was talking about with coaches living in houses and all this and not having staffs, when we can just go. And that's where James Madison is right now. We're just going to go. We're going to execute. We're going to make our game plan. We're going to adjust accordingly. And before you know it, springtime's going to be here. So I'm really excited about that. Less frantic phone calls of, oh my God, did you see the plane landed from Worcester? Is it going to come to Harrisonburg? All this stuff. No, we're just going to execute. We're going to recruit. And it's going to be a great day to be a Duke.
Put flight tracker away. We hopefully don't need that for a while. Steve, your final thoughts.
Get all excited, people. It's 2025. Basketball has gone through their ULM this week. So let's see what they do. Football rallied from their ULM. Now it's time for basketball to do the same, and I have all the confidence in the world that they will. So come out and support them. The women are doing great. The guys are going to do great things. So let's just wait and watch. Now for football, that schedule's outstanding. So we'll borrow something that Michael always said, get your PTO in now. There's going to be a Thursday night game. It's probably going to be App. I doubt it's Georgia Southern, but it might be. It's going to be one of those teams. It's going to be App, ODU, or Georgia Southern. Possibly could be Louisiana. I doubt it. It's probably going to be one of our conference opponents. That's usually what they do. And watch and see what this team does in the spring. We are loaded. And if anybody's got a shot next year in the CFP, will be mentioned in the top 3 mentions as to who can go. So let's see what we do. I'm excited for it. Can't wait for it. And I want to see these damn plans to see what the building is at the stadium. So I'm excited after tonight. So let's see what goes on. And Billy, thanks again. Just want to mention again what a wonderful what a wonderful way to win that ball. I tell you, it's just I'm still excited. Still get goosebumps over it.
Yeah, my final thought's just actually going to be a little internal housekeeping. No one out probably wants to hear it, but I just want to say thank you to the 3 of you and Chandler and Mickey for going through a gauntlet of another season. This was quite the ride, especially as Michael said, we were tracking flights and who's going to be our AD and everything that came with it. And it is not easy always hosting a show week in and week out when we have so many big questions we had to answer. But we did some really cool things this year, not only as a group, but as a group that includes everyone who watches the show. I want to say thank you to everybody who came together during the holidays to raise the money that we did with that challenge that was issued by a donor out in the community. You turned around, you met that $10,000 challenge almost overnight. That's what we can do when we come together as a fan base. As we always say, we're never perfect on this show. Sometimes we may have too much of a purple tint. Sometimes we may not have enough, whatever your perspective is on what we do. We try to get it right. And we just always want to say thank you to everyone who gives a little bit of time each week to what we have to say. It's not lost on us, but it's also not lost on me that the members of this program come together each week with different perspectives and put on a show with all that we have in our lives. And that's my final thought, that this was a special season. I'm excited for what's to come. Thank you to our sponsors for being with us on this journey. Thanks to Matt Roan, thanks to Billy Atkins, and thanks to everyone who was a guest this football season, because you made the show better. And we're excited for what comes next in terms of having more stories and more perspective to share with the audience. And with that, we know there's playoff football out there. Go watch the games. Everybody who's listening after this, we'll be back with some additional football content over the weeks to come as we bring in more guests to shine light on what comes next with this program. Stay tuned on social media. I'm sure there's some exciting things coming down the pipe from everyone associated with this program. There's still a lot of offers out in the portal. Big things to come for this program. And with that, we'll end every show with a Go Dukes and get out to the Atlantic Union Bank Center, support these teams, as Taylor said, and let's get these basketball programs continuing their winning ways. With that, gentlemen, talk to you soon. Go Dukes.